I felt the knife before I saw it. My best friend, Megan, smiled as she pushed the file across the table. The file had my name on the promotion packet. I was at the small cafe where we always met, waiting to celebrate. The barista set down my tea and stepped away. Megan's smile didn't reach her eyes. She said, casual as a breeze. I signed it. They asked me to vouch. My chest tightened. The letter inside wasn't mine. It was a resignation, my resignation, dated 2 days ago, typed with my employee ID. I hadn't written it. My hands trembled. Around us, people laughed and clinked cups. Megan tapped the screen of her phone and showed me a group chat where the whole team joked about how I finally moved on. I read the words and felt my world tilt. I whispered, "Why?" She shrugged. "It was either you leave or they let me go." The cafe blurred. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like rope. Megan looked sorry for 80 seconds, then cold. She had stabbed me in public, and I sat there bleeding from trust. My throat closed. I thought of the late nights, the favors, the times I covered her shifts. How could she make me look like a quitter? The barista asked if I wanted a refill. I wanted to scream. I ran home like the pavement might swallow me if I lingered. My apartment felt too quiet, like someone had turned down the world. I called HR before I opened the door. The man on the line was polite. He read from scripts. "We received your resignation with your name and ID. It appears authentic." My voice cracked. I didn't sign anything. He suggested an investigation. I wanted to believe him. In my kitchen, my hands gripped the counter until my knuckles whitened. I replayed every moment with Megan, our college projects, the time she lent me money, the nights we planned future weddings. Were they all lies? My phone buzzed with messages. My manager sent a short note. "We'll be in touch re-handover." My inbox is filled with polite questions about equipment return. I felt the world thin, like someone had pulled the padding from beneath me. I called my sister and told her to come over. When she arrived, she wrapped me up like I was 8 again. "Don't do anything yet," she said. "Let them investigate. Save your voice." But my mind was already racing with what-ifs. What if Megan wanted my role? What if she wanted everything I had worked for? My heart was hammered. I had to find proof. I opened my work laptop and dove into old emails and files. I checked timestamps and access logs, things I had never thought I'd need. My desk calendar showed the nights I stayed late when Megan left early. My Git commits had timestamps from home. My time logs were clean. There was no sign I'd submitted anything. Then I found an odd email trail, an invitation to a meeting marked with my name, sent from Megan's address, forwarded to HR. The headers showed it was sent at 2:34 a.m. I stared until the letters blurred. Megan slept in a bed 2 miles away at that hour. I opened my messages with her, skimming casual jokes, grocery lists. Nothing hinted at a midnight confession. My chest felt numb. I printed everything and started a notebook. I wrote down details, dates, names, small things I could use later. My sister hammered hot coffee into a travel mug and set it beside me. "You look like you might faint," she said. I smiled weakly. I worried about the damage done to my reputation. The rumor train would run fast. People would say I quit when I had so much promise. I thought of the promotion I wanted and the team I built. They'd been blindsided. I promised myself I would not let Megan write the ending. The next morning, I walked into the office with a face I practiced in the mirror, controlled, calm, and ready. People glanced away or murmured. My manager called me into the glass conference room. The HR woman sat with a file and a polite frown. "We need clarity," she said. I handed over the printouts I'd made overnight, email headers, the midnight meeting invitation, and a small note about my hours. They read quietly. For a second, I thought the room would breathe with me again. Then Megan walked in, smiling like the sunlit part of any day. She sat opposite me, her presence hollow that safety. "I just wanted the team to move on," she said. Her voice was light, but in it I heard steel. HR asked questions about custody of IDs, about who could access the portal. Megan said she had found my ID on my desk and assumed I wanted a clean break. The manager's eyes flicked to me, searching for anger. I kept my voice even. I never left. The HR woman wrote notes. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, a slow machine of protocol turned. They promised an investigation. I felt relief like thin glass, fragile and likely to shatter. Megan left with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I watched her go and felt something shift inside me, not just hurt, but a rising readiness I hadn't named before. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind looped over every betrayal, every smile that had turned into a blade. I remembered the small victories, our first major project success, how we celebrated with cheap pizza and loud music. I remember the nights I covered for her childcare, the times I defended her at meetings. It felt obscene how quickly she had traded loyalty for a file. I found myself counting favors like coins and realizing how often I'd been generous without reservation. The fairness of it stung. I scribbled a list of tiny injustices, her taking credit for my idea in Q2, the way she didn't introduce me to new hires, how she laughed at my mistakes in private. Each item pricked, but revenge wasn't my plan. I wanted justice, and to fix what she had broken. I thought of the promotion I had binge prepared for and the licensing client who liked our system because of my metrics. Losing them felt like a hole in my map. I pulled on jeans and went for a walk to clear my head. The city felt loud, but my determination was louder. If Megan had used a forged resignation, then I would gather evidence. If she had lied to colleagues, I'd set the record straight. I wouldn't let her win by default. I called an old client who liked working with me. He picked up on the second ring. I heard about the shakeup, he said. His voice was careful. I explained, plain and basic, that I hadn't resigned. He listened, then said, "We hire people we trust. If you want, present the next pitch. We like you." Relief flooded me, so hard it embarrassed me. Later, I found a message from a junior colleague who asked if I had any advice on handover. I replied that I could help and asked to meet. People still trusted me. That mattered. I started to map who believed me and who was neutral. I scribbled names beside the printouts, underlining those who could help. The next day, I set a plan: gather logs, ask IT to verify login history, and request security footage of the office on the night the resignation appeared. I scheduled a meeting with our legal advisor. Each small step felt like putting bricks under my feet. I also sent a short, professional note to the team. "I'll assist with transition items until the matter is resolved." It read calm and confident, but inside I was a storm. I realized Megan counted on me being wounded and quiet. I wouldn't be. I learned something important. Evidence so far from random acts could become a map that traced her path. IT replied with a file that made my heart twist. The access log showed a flash of activity on my account at 2:31 a.m., but it wasn't from my laptop. It was from an IP address traced to Megan's home network. My stomach turned. I printed the log and taped it into the notebook. I breathed in the smell of printer toner and felt a strange calm. Now I had a path. I met with the legal advisor, Anna, who had the soft voice of someone who'd seen office betrayals before. She reviewed the evidence and nodded. "We can file an internal complaint and consider fraud charges," she said. My hands trembled, but the thought of holding Megan accountable steadied me. Anna warned me about consequences: workplace fallout, strained friendships, and public attention. I thought of my parents and my small circle. Could they handle it? I knew they would. My sister called that evening, asking if I needed her in meetings. I said yes. The fight now had tools. The next morning, HR asked Megan to stay home pending the investigation. She looked at me from across the foyer as if daring me to celebrate. I did not. Instead, I sat with my notebook and planned questions for the hearing. Each page felt like armor. The investigation hearing felt like a stage. Leadership, HR, and legal sat with clipboards. Megan walked in late, and the room tilted. She wore a neutral sweater and practiced detachment. I sat with my stack of evidence. When asked, Megan said she had accessed the system because she thought I was cleaning out my desk. She claimed to have found the resignation on my computer and uploaded it to HR. I presented the access log with Megan's IP, the forwarded calendar invite, and timestamps proving the resignation document had been created and uploaded from her machine. She faltered. Her fingers tightened on the file like claws. Then a new twist. Megan produced a text from a vendor who swore they had seen my message about leaving. The vendor's number was unfamiliar. HR called for a pause and promised to verify the message metadata. The room hummed. I felt a fresh spike of dread. This new claim could ruin everything. Anna leaned over and whispered a plan, subpoena the vendor's phone logs. I nodded. The hearing adjourned to gather more proof. Megan left the room with a face like stone. The air smelled like threat and coffee. I walked out into the sun and realized how close I was to the real danger, false witnesses and planted evidence. I worked with Anna to get a subpoena for the vendor logs. It felt like a small legal war. Anna was calm, typing request after request. Meanwhile, whispers spread. Some colleagues avoided me like a rumor might be contagious. Others brought small notes of support. "We trust you," or "call if you need help." The vendor's company replied slowly, then produced logs showing message metadata. The number that had sent the goodbye text to HR belonged to a disposable SIM. The carrier traced the purchase to a convenience store across town. The camera footage from that night showed a figure buying multiple SIMs with a hoodie pulled up. The hood shadowed the face, but the gait looked familiar, an awkward tilt I recognized from our college pictures. My chest tightened. I replayed the footage until the store clerk's nail polish chipped like a tick of time. The clerk pointed to a car idling outside in the footage. The plate number matched Megan's car, registered to her mother's name. The evidence stack grew heavy and true. My hands shook as I handled proof that her steps led directly to the scene. I felt both relief and sorrow. Relief that the path was clear, sorrow because betrayal had a shape. I confronted Megan in the parking lot under a sky smeared with late afternoon gold. She was loading groceries into her trunk, methodical. I walked up, my voice steady. "Why?" She froze, then sighed like someone expecting redemption. "You never fought," she said. "You always let things slide for us to keep peace." I wanted to be seen. Her words made me ache. I remembered nights she'd push me aside to take calls, and the way she'd always wanted the center. "So you ruined my career to be seen?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "It wasn't supposed to hurt like this. I just wanted to be in front." She spoke like a child who'd lit a candle and watched it burn the curtains. I had proof in my notebook, camera stills, logs, texts, yet seeing her up close made the hurt real in my chest again. I said nothing for a long moment. Then I told her the truth. I would go to HR, to the police if needed. She looked tired, and for a second I thought she might cry. Instead, she closed the trunk and drove away, leaving steam from the warm engine like a disappearing sigh. I watched her taillights fade and felt a mix of emptiness and resolve. The police took Megan's statement at the station. She recited versions like dress rehearsals, one for HR, one for the vendor, one for her mother. The officer who took my statement had kind eyes. He told me uncertain things about charges and evidence standards, which made my chest hurt. Anna filed a civil claim while the police considered fraud. The company posted a neutral memo about personnel matters, while HR tightened security. Megan's social circle splintered. Some friends claimed ignorance. Others stopped replying. I was relieved when a few old coworkers visited me, bearing comfort food and stories of small kindnesses I'd shown them years ago. Those afternoons with laughter felt like stitches. I also noticed something unexpected, a small uptick of support online. My LinkedIn post, brief and professional, explained that I was resolving an internal issue and thanked clients for patience. Replies came from colleagues and clients who vouched for my work. One client offered to delay decisions until the investigation concluded. That small mercy felt like a hand under my back. The fight with Megan was bigger than us now. It was a test of fairness. Weeks of hearings frayed me. Each session brought new evidence and new surprises. Megan's defense became more elaborate. Claims of a mental lapse, a story about a friend who taught her how to manipulate files. I grew tired of repeating what I had already proved. Yet each time I thought the end was near, some new twists sprang up like a root-cracking pavement. Then, during a mediation session, an unexpected witness arrived. Ruth, Megan's neighbor. Ruth had seen Megan in her car the night of the SIM purchase and had recorded a brief video on her porch camera. The file showed Megan chatting on the phone, nervous. Ruth's testimony felt small and human, and that was its power. Hearing someone ordinary confirm the footage fortified my case. HR started whispering about immediate steps, and the board moved to restrict Megan's access to internal accounts. People who had been timid in speaking now edged closer, offering small confirmations about Megan's behavior at work. The tide shifted. I felt the momentum of the weather change. The world was not all cruel. Truth found anchors in small, ordinary people willing to say what they saw. Megan's job ended with a muted announcement. Employment terminated due to breach of company policy. The email read coldly, a corporate sigh. Her exit was swift. She packed a box of personal items and walked out without looking at me. I watched her pass the glass doors and felt no joy in it, only a hollow ache. Outside, the press smelled a story bigger than our office gossip. Someone posted the resignation image online and named me the victim of a corporate betrayal. The comment section was a river of hot takes. Most sided with me. Some defended Megan as desperate. I kept my head low, but I could feel the world balancing back. Clients kept faith. The police continued investigating the phone purchases and the vendor messages. The CEO sent a short note to the staff about ethics and respect. I sighed at the official language and thought of less formal things, birthday cards, shared lunches, late-night problem-solving. Those small moments had meant so much more than a performance of success. I sat down with Anna, and we decided to aim for a public letter acknowledging the misdeed. It felt righteous and risky. After Megan left, pieces shifted in unexpected ways. Some coworkers apologized quietly for not noticing, while others tried to distance themselves from any drama. I had nightmares where Megan's smile returned in a crowd and everything I had worked for dissolved like sugar in rain. Yet, there were brighter things too. The team we built began to reform under my guidance. People looked to me for steady direction. We fixed the broken report that had wobbled our client presentations and made the codebase clearer. Each small fix felt like healing. I started the mentorship program I had always wanted, offering time to junior staff. Their gratitude fed me. To my surprise, Megan reached out through a lawyer with a demand, a public apology and a settlement for defamation. It was absurd. She wanted me to apologize for being hurt by her betrayal. Anna advised ignoring it, preparing instead for an official statement. I felt a strange pity reading the demand. It was like someone trying to reverse gravity. I didn't reply. Instead, I kept building. I kept planting seeds where things had been barren. The day the police closed their investigation, they called me in. They confirmed they would recommend charges, fraud and identity theft. Megan's face would appear in court papers soon. The news landed like rain. I felt vindication, but it didn't erase the nights I'd cried. I sat with my sister and watched her smaller hands fold in her lap. You stood up, she said. You did the hard thing. I thought of a book I'd loved as a child where the hero refused to be defined by one villain. I wanted that for my life. At work, people began to ask me to lead strategy sessions. My voice carried. I also received an unexpected email from a former mentor who offered to introduce me to a potential client overseas. Opportunities I dreamed about suddenly felt within reach. Yet, each door opened with echoes of what had closed. I learned to accept both, grief and growth, without letting one erase the other. The world was not a single story but a collage. My part was to keep creating. Court papers arrived with a shock of black ink and formal names. I read them in the quiet of my kitchen, sipping tea until it cooled to a dull glass. Megan's lawyer tried to paint her as unstable, pushed into foolish choices by pressure and envy. Anna countered with hard facts and logs and footage. The judge set dates. I bought a new notebook for testimony notes and practiced telling the story plainly. My sister practiced with me, asking questions like a scrupulous juror. Each rehearsal smoothed corners and strengthened my voice. On the day of the preliminary hearing, the courtroom felt crowded with invisible history. Megan sat in the defendant's area, smaller than I remembered, yet still defiant. Her eyes met mine and flashed something like regret, or maybe calculation. I told the truth with no flourishes. The judge listened and set the case for trial. Afterward, reporters crowded me for comment, and I said the only thing I wanted to. I want the truth, not headlines. The words felt honest. In the quiet after the microphones, a relief settled like dust. The system had moved. Now I had to wait. The lead up to the trial was a maze. Witnesses were subpoenaed, depositions scheduled, and my life wove into legal appointments and late-night document reviews. Work blurred into law, into sleep, and back again. There were nights I paced the apartment, thinking about small kindnesses from people who had believed me. There were also nights when I feared the court would favor charm over facts. I kept my notebook close. Then, a surprise. The vendor who had claimed to see the resignation message reached out and confessed they had been paid by Megan to create the complaint. The confession arrived in an email with shaky language, admitting the extortion. It was a brittle, late truth that broke Megan's defense in a single line. I printed it and felt a strange wash of relief and sorrow. Relief for the truth, sorrow for how low someone could be pushed. Anna breathed and said, "This is the nail in the coffin." I hadn't thought of courtroom language before. Now it became the measure of my days. We prepared to show the jury not just trickery, but deliberate manipulation. Trial week arrived with a weathered roar. The courtroom filled with people on both sides. I sat with Anna and watched as the prosecutor laid out the case with calm clarity. For the defense, Megan's lawyer tried to evoke sympathy. The jury's faces were a blur of attention. My testimony felt like breathing, necessary and measured. I told the story plainly, about the cafe, the midnight texts, the fake vendor, and the SIM purchase. I felt my voice carry in the quiet room. Evidence flashed on screens, footage of the store, access logs, vendor emails. The prosecutor showed the jury the chain of actions that led from a disposable SIM to a false message that upended a life. Megan watched me with an unreadable expression. When her turn came, she testified and looked pale. She tried to explain the pressure she felt and, in a moment, admitted she'd made decisions without thought to consequence. The jury listened, then deliberated. The wait felt like a breath held too long. Guilty. The word hit like a bell. Megan was found guilty of fraud and identity theft. The courtroom exhaled. I felt a flood of emotions, relief, sorrow, a weary triumph. The judge sentenced her with a term that fit the crime: restitution, community service, and probation. She would also face professional consequences. As she was led away, her eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw real remorse crack through her defenses. It did not heal what she'd done, but it was a moment of human truth. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. I refused to make the moment about spectacle. I walked to my sister's car and we drove away, trading silence for shared breaths. The city felt heavier and kinder at once. That night, I dreamed not of revenge but of repair, of how to rebuild trust in places where betrayal had left holes. After the trial, the company issued a full statement acknowledging the wrongdoing and pledging reforms, stronger verification protocols, two-person checks on resignations, and better support for employees. I worked with them to design a new policy. Sitting in those meetings, I felt a strange power. My trauma made policy sharper and safer for others. At a town hall, I explained why security mattered and why human kindness could be protected by process. People listened. The mentorship program expanded into a formal initiative supported by the company, offering training and legal awareness. I also received offers from other firms. The world opened doors I hadn't expected. Yet, I kept the life that felt true. My small apartment, my Saturday walks, dinners with my sister. I refused to let success become a mask. I wanted to feel every choice was honest. Slowly, people returned to the office with less fear and more care. The team was healing. I felt proud in a quiet way, not triumphant but satisfied that fairness had been restored. Megan's life after conviction was a word I watched from far away. She began community service, writing apology letters, and speaking to small groups about the dangers of envy. A few times, she tried to reach out through third parties asking for leniency. I declined. Forgiveness is a path, not a demand. I wanted to keep healthy boundaries. Occasionally, she'd appear in the news when she attended hearings or spoke in court. The world knew of her failure, and I knew of hers too. My life continued to thrum with projects, with new clients and new co-deployments. I traveled for a consulting gig that took me to a coastal city where the light hit the water like coins. Standing on a small balcony, I thought of where I'd been and how far I had come. Growth wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my story. I had learned to turn pain into active steps, policy changes, mentorship, honest leadership. That felt like real power. One day, Megan emailed me a direct apology, not via lawyers, not contrived, just a short note. "I'm sorry," she wrote. "I saw what I did. I am ashamed." I read it slowly, feeling old pain. I wrote back, "I accept your apology in principle. Healing takes time. I didn't promise friendship. I promised honesty." She replied with one question. Could you tell me what to say to make amends? I thought for a long time and then wrote back a list. Admit the harm, accept consequences, work for repair, and do public service aligned with the damage. She responded with short updates over months, community workshops, volunteer hours, and a donation to a victim's fund. I watched as she tried, imperfectly. It didn't erase the betrayed nights, but it drew a small line between who she was and who she tried to be. I felt no rush to embrace her, but I felt a small easing in my chest each time she returned to the path she had broken from. Life's small mercies kept arriving like steady mail. One of my ments launched a helpful tool and dedicated it to the team that taught her how to code with kindness. A client recommended our group for a large contract, praising our ethics and transparency. My sister brought home photographs from a community garden she'd helped start, funded by a small grant I supplied quietly. These little ripples told me I had not wasted heartbreak. I also published an essay about workplace betrayal and resilience. It was picked up by a magazine that used simple language and honest examples. Emails poured in from people who had been backstabbed, too. Some at work, some in friendships. They thanked me for naming the pain and showing a path forward. I realized my story had become a map for others. That felt heavy and humbling. I kept doing the work, code, mentoring, policy, knowing each step mattered. Years later, I stood in front of a small audience at a community center, speaking about decisions and dignity. My voice was steady. I told the story plainly, avoiding melodrama. People nodded. After the talk, a woman came up and hugged me, whispering, "Your story helped me leave my toxic job." Another man said he changed his company's HR policies because of what I'd shared. Those moments felt like seeds sprouting. The hurt was no longer raw. It had been woven into something useful. I walked home in the dusk, thinking of the cafe where it began. I thought of Megan, too, now far away and doing small good. I didn't need her to suffer, I needed truth. I had learned that justice and mercy could coexist. Not neat, but somehow enough. On a quiet afternoon, I opened a letter from the company board. They had created an annual award for integrity and innovation, named after the values we had fought to protect. My name was on the first plaque, but I felt shy about it. The award came with a donation to a legal aid fund for employees wronged by fraud. I set the plaque on the shelf and looked at it without much fanfare. My sister called to congratulate me, and we laughed about a silly childhood memory we both loved. I felt whole in a way that had nothing to do with recognition. The betrayal by my best friend had been terrible, but it taught me resilience, boundaries, and the power of true justice. I had chosen a path that did not end in revenge as spectacle, but in rebuilding. The final twist, the clearest lesson, was this: being backstabbed showed me who already stood with me. Those people were my real world. I breathed, and the air felt clean. The story that began with a betrayal ended with a community mended and a life that moved forward, steady and brave. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and tap the bell to get notified the moment we drop a new story, and don't forget to like the video to help others find it.